This is From Courtroom to Carline, the podcast where we discuss life as a lawyer and a parent.
I'm Jenna.
And I'm Rick.
Your hosts and partners both in the courtroom and in parenting.
Join us as we navigate the fascinating worlds of law and family life.
Now, this is not legal advice, but in every episode, From Courtroom to Carline is a delightful blend of legal insight and parenting hilarity.
Get ready for a roller coaster ride where law meets love and where the gavel meets the Carline.
This is another episode from Courtroom to Carline, a legal parenting podcast. And on today's episode, we have Catherine Henry. She's a criminal defense attorney here in the area. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, Catherine, we work together at the Public Defender's Office, and you now have your own law firm. I love the story on how that came about. So why don't you tell our listeners why you opened your own firm?
So my plan had been to always be a public defender. I was a true believer, diehard, never planned on opening my own law firm, but, life changes. And I reached the point where I was ready to leave, didn't know where I was going to go, what I was going to do. But of course, I wanted to sit down with the judge that I had been practicing in front of. Because as you know, as a public defender, you're assigned to one particular division. You're in front of that judge all day, every day. It's just a nice courtesy to let them know that you're leaving. And when I sat down with her, she's retired now, but she was this powerhouse judge who's honestly rather intimidating and kind of had a reputation for being a bit tough. And she asked me where I was going, and I told her, I was considering various firms. And she looked at me and she said, "Catherine, do not go make money for some man. Just go do it yourself." And I said, "Yes, Judge." And that was that.
So once you got that information and that guidance, which, by the way, I think is phenomenal guidance, what was your next step on how you started to put that in action?
Despite the fact that I had no intention of leaving the PD's office, the whole time I was a public defender, I was very involved with the St. Petersburg Bar Association. And so I had, over those, 4.5 years, developed fantastic relationships with private attorneys, judges, across, both criminal and civil. And so I have an amazing network of mentors. I reached out to, all of them and let them know, this is what I'm doing. And one in particular, a civil guy, Charles Gallagher, he sent me a PowerPoint presentation on everything you need to know to start your own law firm, including benchmarks, timelines with 45 days out, 30 days out, 3 months in, 6 months in, and just, hit the ground running from there. I turned in my notice March 1st, started my law firm April 1st, and signed, that was a Thursday, I believe, and signed my very first case the very next week.
Wow, that's incredible.
I'm very lucky.
I want to go back, though, while you were at the PD's office and the judge that you were in front of. Tell us about your work with the ACLU and how that kind of helped grow that connection with the judge.
Yes. So when I started in that division, the ACLU came and did a talk with all the public defenders. They were combating unaffordable bonds. And so they literally handed us on a silver platter the motion to file, the questions to ask, to elicit the testimony that they needed, and then told us when it gets denied, because we knew it would, that they would then handle the appeal, handle everything from then on out. They just needed boots on the ground, filing the motions, getting smacked down by the judges. And I loved that idea, ran with it. And truthfully, that actually is what dramatically changed my relationship with that judge. Prior to me, running with that ACLU flag, she really didn't know much about me, I hadn't earned her respect yet. And the first time I ran an ACLU motion in front of her, I was not able to get out any of the testimony I needed. I was shut down very hard, cut off, told I was not allowed to continue my line of questioning, and the hearing was over.
Wow.
Thankfully, I shut my mouth, let her do her thing, sent it on off to the ACLU, and of course, she got turned over. And from that moment forward, it was a 180. She let me have the motion hearing like we should. She was granting the motions like she should. And then just the level of respect in our relationship just continued to grow from that point forward.
When you filed that first motion and had that first hearing, did the judge know the ACLU's role in taking the appeal and how that was kind of playing out?
I'm very confident she had no idea that's what we were doing.
I think it's interesting when we talk about gaining the respect from the judges, because I don't know if you had this experience going private, but I know for me, like you said, when you're in a division and you get to know one judge, it's easier to gain their respect because you're in there on a daily basis. Well, going private, you're now in front of all these new judges. They really don't know who you are. And I remember, I'd come home and I'd tell Rick and I'd say, man, this judge gave me kind of a hard time, And then a few months later, after you've been in front of them a few times, you're like, all right, I think that that I've gained their respect. They see that I work hard. Did you run into kind of that when you went private and are now in front of new judges?
So not really as much, but I would credit that to, again, having amazing mentors and also the background of being a PD. So whenever I go to a courtroom that I've never been to before and I'm in front of a judge I've never been in front of before, I always make friends with the PDs in the courtroom. I find out, okay, what is this judge's quirks? I, of course, review their practice requirements if they have them. And then also getting there early. So I always, if court's at 8:30, I'm there at 8 o'clock in the morning. I like to observe what's happening. I've had judges that they're, as we all know, they're watching us too. Whether it's from the comfort of their chambers watching us on camera or if they're just on the bench watching what's happening in the courtroom. Brief story, I had a judge where I got there before the hearing had started. He wasn't even on the record yet, but he overheard me just talking with the state, talking with my client, going over the plea form, going over everything. So when we were on the record and my client goes to plea, the judge actually put on the record, well, I heard Miss Henry's plea colloquy with you. It was quite thorough. So I know you know all of the rights you're giving up today. And he basically didn't do one on the record.
Right. It's great that, like you said, they are watching. They do see how you are. And that's good that you got his approval, essentially. But yeah, for me, it's tough going in front of a new judge. But now that I've been doing it for a couple of years now, it's getting easier, but still.
Mm-hmm. And that's also where, developing relationships, not only with the PDs, with obviously the state attorneys as well, it just helps. And that's part of the community involvement. So the St. Pete Bar Association, the Pinellas Association for Women Lawyers. I wasn't with the Sarasota County Bar Association, the Manatee County Bar Association, the Inns of Courts. It gives you those opportunities to meet those state attorneys, to be in the same room with those judges. I had a judge recently, she moved from civil to criminal, and before I even appeared in front of her on a criminal case, I got to be with her at an event and get to know her on that level so that I already came in a little bit above when I was in front of her, so she knew what to expect.
And that's such valuable insight because when you said that you started doing that when you were at the PD's office. Now that you're at your own firm, you're still actively involved in the St. Pete Bar and a lot of other civic organizations. So why don't you talk a little bit about that and what you're currently doing?
With the St. Pete Bar, I kind of fell into leadership. I was a PD. I just started at the PD's office, went to a seminar that the St. Pete Bar was putting on. Mr. Dillinger was always really good about sending PDs to events and,
Yes.
on the office's dime. So I went to the event, and later that same day, I had another event that I was going to for the Tampa Bay Inns of Court. While I was there, the criminal law chair who had just put on the event earlier in the day, he was like, you're one of those doer people. So next thing I knew, I was the co-chair of the criminal law section of the St. Pete Bar, which I had to join the St. Pete Bar first to then do that. And then so I was the co-chair, then the chair again, then a board member for 2 years, then the secretary, then the treasurer. I'm now into my second year as the treasurer with the St. Pete Bar, hopefully on my way to presidency, fingers crossed. Really, these organizations not only, help me, but also give me that, again, we're former PDs. We have that itch. We want to give back, and it gives me that, helps me scratch that itch.
No, I think one of the things that we're realizing now is that when you're at the PD's office, it's an influx of cases. You don't have to work for it. You don't have to market for it. And so we're realizing networking is a huge deal. I wish that before I had kids, I was doing all the things that, you were. I unfortunately wasn't. But networking, I think, and just meeting, like you said, meeting people is so crucial to just getting your name out there. They get to meet you on a more personal level. They refer cases to you. It's definitely something that we're trying to get more into. Obviously, it's just hard sometimes with kids and all their things. But it's great that you're so involved in the community.
Little plug for St. Pete Bar. We are working toward having more like events where you can bring your kids and have like networking where the kids are at the playground playing and the lawyers are still getting their networking in. So stay tuned for that.
Yes, no, that's definitely good to hear because Rick and I are saying, more restaurants should have childcare, so we can
or like
have
a separate room for the kids.
Right. Yeah. Just so that we can, get out and not have to pay too much for, a sitter. But
one of the things we found ourselves signing up for is our church groups because they have childcare, and so hey, what better way to get some adult time for Jenna and I, meet some new people, and then we know that they're with people that we trust, so. We're very excited if you guys are planning something like that, if we would be the first ones to sign up.
Yes.
Because if say we go to an event and we sign up and, our kids misbehave, we can tell them, hey, look, this guy's a judge. He can sentence you to, some serious timeout or something like that. So.
Serious timeout. I love it.
Well, and it's funny too, because, obviously our kids are young, so we're very careful on what we tell them that we do. So, Rick and I will try to talk about cases. So if we're talking about a sex case, it's an S case. If we're talking about a murder case, it's an M case. They joke about jail, but we try to, because they'll hear us, say it, and we just try to not make it a joke because it's not for our clients. But I want to still be very careful with how we approach what we do with them, just because they are still so young, and I don't need them going to school and saying things. So something we're navigating throughout this whole process. But kind of switching gears, do you have any stories or cases that are memorable to you, maybe challenging that you've had that really just stand out?
Probably one of my biggest success stories that still warms the coddles of my heart. I do not handle a lot of S cases. But actually relatively early on in my solo practice, I represented this 19-year-old boy who was charged with first-degree sex battery on a minor. And obviously he was looking at life in prison. He had no prior history. And it was a just all around just heartbreaking situation for everyone involved. And I love this case because I was able to do the most good. The state attorney on the case, actually, well, the supervisor, because of course I had to go to the supervisor because we did magical things for this young man. Ultimately, his case ended up getting reduced from a first-degree felony to a third-degree felony, child abuse.
Wow, incredible.
He got a withhold of adjudication, 5 years probation, no prison time, no sex offender registration, no designation, just a whole lot of treatment. And obviously that was very much warranted by the facts. We had, hired an expert, had a psychosexual evaluation done. But just that process of being able to be there for my client, and yes, had he done what he was accused of doing? Yes. But he had taken accountability. He had given a full apology. It was more about taking steps to help not only him, but also the victim in the case move forward. And so because we weren't trying to depose her or argue anything, the state was willing to do wonderful things for my client. So much so that even the judge, when we went in there to work it out, she paused and looked at the state and was like, "Are you really doing this?"
Those stories are always so great because it doesn't always end like that, right? But I think also too, and I think you would agree, when you go private, there's less cases. You get to focus more on which cases, you take and really do more of a deep dive. Do you feel like that's been beneficial in going?
In my private practice, I specifically keep my case count. And And I joke, I don't count cases, I count clients, because
Yes.
in criminal, most of our clients have multiple cases. But so I actually try to keep my client count around 25 to 30, because I am a true solo. I do not have any staff. I do everything myself. And so that's kind of my magic number to be able to give my clients and the cases the massive amount of time that I give each of them to do those deep dives and come up with creative solutions.
I think that's great, especially because I love the PD's office. It's wonderful work, but I feel like towards the end, I felt like I was not giving all that I could to my cases. I felt I was doing, as best I could, but it really wasn't my best. And it was just something that I was like, I can't do this long term. I felt like I was almost not doing what I, knew I had the potential to do.
Yes.
So, that's something that I think Rick and I both try to pride ourselves on is we split the cases up. I'm more patient than Rick is, so I'll try to take the cases that may need a little bit more
Hand-holding.
or patience. But when you're private, you get to make those decisions as a business owner.
One of my favorite pieces of advice I got from one of my mentors was, you will never regret more the case that you signed and you should have turned away. And so I love being able to say, no, I'm
Yes.
not going to help you, or yes, like I am here for you. I want to carry that flag for you and take you to the finish line.
Quick story on that point. So I joined the firm. So Rick had hit, the Fletcher Law practice for about 5 years, and then we rebranded to Fletcher and Fletcher. And so I'd get a lead call. And so to me, I'm like, well, I just got to sign this case. Like, we need money coming in. No one's on anymore. And Rick's like, Jenna, I really don't think we should take this. Like, don't. And I was like, no, it'll be fine. I quickly realized that no, like sometimes you just need to. And whether it's mental health or, whatever the issue may be, but sometimes when you're taking a case just to take it, especially when it's taking up just a lot of your time for not as much money, I just can't do that because we do have the other clients that we need to attend to. So now I'm definitely more on alert for those cases that come in and just make sure that we're taking cases that we can genuinely put our time and attention into.
Yeah. So when I first started my practice, I was offering coverage to, help supplement while I was building my firm. And this one law firm that I had been doing coverage for, they wanted to hire me. I told them, obviously, I'm not for hire. I have my own law firm. We ended up working out this really fantastic co-counselor of counsel deal. And in that agreement, I had a veto clause where they would just feed me cases.
Yeah.
And I would just take them, and they handled the accounting. I had a legal assistant. I just handled the client and the court. And if there was any client that I didn't want to represent, I could veto it, no issue. I only exercised my veto powers once. And I called this client. I had just been assigned his case. I introduce myself. Immediately, he's interrupting me, speaking over me, arguing with me. And by the end of the call, I said, I don't think I am the right attorney for you. I think you will be better suited with a man, and I'm going to make that happen for you. And so sure enough, I called the office. I was like, nope, this guy needs to go. And about a year later, the office manager called me, or we were on the phone for something else.
Yeah.
And she was like, you made the best decision getting off that case. She's like, we still are on this case. It's still around. He never pays his bill on time, and he is the neediest client we have.
No, and one of the things too that setting boundaries, right, in terms of what you're going to allow for the client to do. I know it's not necessarily directly related, but just in terms of clients, making sure that no weekend calls or no evening calls. And I think that again, that's something that I was struggling with, thinking I just need to take the calls that come in whenever, but just having faith that the cases are going to come in. You don't need to take those types of clients that are interrupting you and, being rude and not paying the bills. But yeah, it's definitely different, being on your own and getting to make those calls.
And I am very protective of my family time. So I do have 3 stepchildren. I have a loving partner who I love very much. And so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's family time, unless my client's getting arrested. That's the exception.
Right, yes.
But I give all of my clients my personal cell phone number. They can all call me, text me anytime they need anything. But I give them the caveat that these are the boundaries. And I enforce those boundaries. And I tell them, like, I am extremely responsive. In fact, I'm more proactive. My clients normally don't bother me because I'm reaching out to them more than
Yes.
they probably want to hear from me. But I am very, very protective of that because that's what helps, you can't pour from an empty cup. And that's what helps me maintain my optimum performance is having that time with my family and having those boundaries.
Absolutely.
And there's always something that, us as attorneys need to do to recharge. I think, for us, because, we're juggling, everything with the kids, for me, it could be just watching, a Little League baseball game or, just taking time to swim with them in the pool. That's really like our recharge. And because I know I'm not taking a call during that time, I'm not worried about it. They're keeping me busy. So I feel like all of us as attorneys need that time to, whether it's family, whether it's a pet, whether it's just a hobby that you have. I think one of your attorney friends is into horseback riding, just something that gets you disconnected. One of our guests, Joe, he's into classic cars and he drives up into the mountains. No cell phone service. So that's something that we all need and we all need to implement and not forget about as we get busier and busier into your firm, which I'm sure you're getting.
Yes, yeah. And my kids know, like, after 6 o'clock at night, my phone's in the other room.
I love that.
We have a rule at our house, no cell phones at the table, period.
That's awesome.
And so they also know, like, their time is their time. And I work from home most of the times, and my kids, it's summer, so they're home right now. They know that I'm working. Even yesterday, I had back-to-back meetings. I told them, and I tell them, if it's a meeting that they can't interrupt me, they know. Yesterday, I'm like, all of these meetings are networking. You can call me. I am 10 minutes down the road. Don't worry about bothering me. If I'm on like an important call, they know, don't come into the office that I'm in. It works.
It's funny. We'll sometimes get a phone call at home. The kids will be home early from school or it's summer. And we'll, all yell to communicate, all right, somebody's taking a phone call as we're like dashing into the, the bedroom office. And it's just, but that's what you have to do, to make sure that the kids know. But they pick it up very quickly, right? So they know, okay, dad's on a phone call. Where's mommy? I'm hungry.
Yes.
So it's just good to have that communication with them and that they respect you for that.
And I mean, in fairness, my kids are much older than yours. So it is a lot easier at my house.
I try to teach them as much as I can. We own a business and they're like, you're always working. And it's like, we're not. I'm home much more than my mom was who, didn't own a business. But obviously this is all they know, right? So I have to explain to them like, no, like we picked you up early, but I might have to take a, quick 5-minute phone call, but at least you're home with us,
Yes.
They are little, so they forget sometimes, or I'll have I'll be on a, video visit or a jail video visit and I hear them like creeping in the back, and I'll like turn around, I'll be like, hold on. And it's just, but they know, right? It's not like they come in and they're like, hey, what are you doing? It's just like, I'll be right with you. But it's just, again, navigating, owning a business and having kids and figuring out how that fits for your family.
Yes.
But it's exciting. We were talking about, you taking the weekends for your family. Do you have any hobbies that you guys like to do as a family that, again, lets you recharge?
I actually will say all I need to be happy is sunshine and water. Just going to the beach, going out on the boat, paddleboarding, walking around downtown St. Pete. I call him my little because my kids are 12, 15, and 20.
Yep.
So my 12-year-old, he's my mini-me. He wants to go to all the places, and he used to go on like epic 5-mile walks with me.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yes. So yeah, now we actually, just last week, we got all of us certified for level 1 belay.
Okay, very
So
nice.
we're now doing rock climbing this summer.
Yep. Where did you get certified?
At Vertical Ventures. Yes.
I've been meaning to take my kids. We haven't gone yet, but they even have like a 3 and 4-year-old class. So I was like, I have to take them. I think they'd absolutely love that.
And they have kids camps over the summer.
Do they?
Mm-hmm.
Good to know, because we some weeks we have filled up, some we have open. So I'll have to look into that. Just getting them to experience new things is what we
Yes.
try to push.
Shameless plug on kids camps. Also, the James Museum has some really cool camps for the summer. My
Okay.
15-year-old is one of the student volunteers
Oh, that's
working with the kid
awesome.
camps.
Oh, that's so cool. The amount of camps that are available and the choices that there
Mhm.
are now is absolutely phenomenal because all of our kids are different. So we try to find, camps that they like and enjoy. But yeah, so James Museum, I'll definitely have to check out in Vertical Ventures as well.
Yes.
Anything you're reading or listening to for podcasts?
Brave Not Perfect by Reshma Sajani. She founded the nonprofit Girls Who Code.
Okay.
And so through her experience working with that nonprofit, it led her to write this book, or well, led her to a TED Talk, and then she wrote this book on how girls particularly are raised to be perfect, whereas boys are raised to be brave and that they're taught to be resilient, whereas girls are taught, well, you have to be perfect at all times. And so that kind of translates to where girls tend to be less willing to try new things and are afraid of failure. And so it was a great book for myself personally as, a girl
Yes.
and as a perfectionist who I was always, I want to be perfect. Things have to be perfect. If you're not perfect, you're a failure. And then obviously with, helping my kids and making sure that they know that it's about taking risks and failing over and over and over again until you succeed. That's what makes you successful.
Interesting that you bring up failure because I feel like growing up, I don't think I was ever punished for it, but it wasn't ever like widely accepted either, right? So I remember I follow Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, on Instagram. And one of her stories is that her dad would always, ask her, "What did you fail at today?"
Yes.
Right? Just making it that norm.
Mhm.
And it's so true because now as I'm getting older, you start hearing that failure is okay. You should fail. It will teach you something. And it's just, I wasn't shamed for failing, but I also, again, wasn't taught that it was okay to
Right.
fail.
I mentor a lot of, law students and young lawyers, and I love reminding people it's the practice of law. Like we're all
Yes.
practicing and it's always changing and evolving and like you're never going to do something perfect and it's about did you try your hardest? And okay, you ran that argument and you failed, but you tried and you learned something in the process.
Absolutely. No,
And I think a lot of our clients are just looking for that effort,
Yes.
especially, at the PD's office where they have the stigma, oh, he's not really trying, or she's working for the state, and we get that all the time. But if they are in court with you and they see you going to bat for them, making the arguments, trying to stand up to the judge and the prosecutor or their law enforcement witness, so a lot of times if the outcome's not what they wanted, they're still I don't want to say happy, but they appreciate the effort,
Yes.
and that builds the relationship between you and the client, and now they may, take your advice and do what's best for their case. So I remember growing up hearing the story, being a Chicago Bulls fan, Michael Jordan missed 30 game-winning shots. He was cut from the varsity basketball team. And so like you said, you have to fail in order to succeed. And we were just talking about it with Joe, our other guest, taking on those cases when you first start your law firm. You may not be an expert in it, but you have to be willing to put in the work to learn it and put in the effort to, get the outcome. It might not happen right away, but if you take your time, you study it, you learn it, eventually the client's going to see the effort that was put in and appreciate it and be grateful for your service.
Yes. And that's something too, like really focusing on communicating with your client and setting them up for realistic expectations. So whenever I have a client who asks me to, file a motion or there's an offer that they want to convey that I know is never going to be accepted, I will tell my client, I will always file the motion. I will always go to bat and try to get that offer. And then I explain to them, now, here's the reality of the situation.
Right.
And I'll say, I'm going to ask for this.
Yeah.
We're probably going to get this. And I'm going to make these arguments to the judge, but just know this is what, and I love it when I can say, I'm going to say this, the judge is going to say this. I'm going to say this, the judge is going to say this. And then it plays out just like that in court. But that's what, to your point, the client wants to see that you're willing to try. Because, and I'll tell my client, I know that we're not going to get it, but I'd rather try and be wrong.
Yes.
And then we get something we shouldn't have than me telling you, no, we're not going to get that. We're not going to waste our time. And then your clients look at, well, what do I hire you for? Why are you here?
I know that's one of the things I always tell Rick. It's like, let's try to be at least hopeful on the phone, because I never want to crush somebody's, dreams or aspirations of what they think the outcome is going to be. Because if I'm on the other line, if I was calling for help, I'd want at least somebody to say, look, I'll try for you.
Yes.
And, we've had clients say, you were the most positive one. And here we are saying, you might go to prison. But wrapped in all of that, we would still say we'll absolutely do whatever we can to avoid that. So I think it's absolutely, crucial just to be that positive voice for them.
Yes.
And the times that you're wrong and the judge actually agrees with your argument, it makes the result so much better.
Yes.
That's how I felt that case involving the smell of marijuana. It was a court-appointed case. I made the argument because I thought there was something there, but fully expecting it to be denied. And it was granted. I was shocked. Client was shocked. The state attorney was very shocked. And the second DCA voluntarily dismissed the appeal. And so, again, like you said, you got to at least try, because if you don't try, then you could miss out on the opportunity that was there for you.
Exactly.
Well, Catherine, we have loved having you on our episode From Courtroom to Carline, a legal parenting podcast. Before you leave, why don't you plug where they can find you?
Yes. So my website is henrydefense.com, and I can be reached directly by phone at 727-273-7929. Literally, when you call me, you get me on the phone.
We'd love to have you if you want to stick around for What Happened to Florida Man, and we'll be right back.